Hello, and welcome to the Merri-Cast, the show that puts you on the fast track to business confidence. My guest this week is the insightful and brilliant Mac Attram. He's the founder and CEO of Mindspace Coaching. He's an international speaker and a #1 best-selling author. Mac has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years now, and with that has come huge success. However, he's also had to learn some vital lessons along the way. And in this upcoming episode, he shares how he overcame his worst moment and what this taught him about business, why your business can only grow if you are growing yourself, and he also discusses the difference between passion and purpose, and that last bit is especially insightful. But let's talk about young Mac. Where did he grow up and what was he like?
Well, I was born in a country called Ghana many years ago, and my parents, well, my father especially, had an opportunity. He had an invitation to come and work here in the UK, so he grabbed that, and we lived in South London, and that's where I grew up. It was late 70s, early 80s, and I suppose my parents were very typical that education is very important. So it was important to get good grades, like a lot of us, and find a good job and all the rest of it. And I went down that route. I eventually worked for 3 companies. And actually, Trevor, the first one I worked for 7 years. They took me on as a a graduate management trainee. And after 7 years, after various promotions, I thought, I'm not really enjoying this anymore. So I joined another company, and I survived 2 years there. Then I thought, oh no, it must be the company, and I've got to find something else to do. So I joined the other company, and I lasted 1 year. And at the end of that year, towards the end of the year, I was getting very dissatisfied, not fulfilled. I thought, is it me? Is it the company? What is it? Now I realized I've got to start my own company. I wanted to do my own thing. I want to take my life into my own destiny, as it were. And I was hesitating, resisting. And I remember having a conversation. It wasn't even a conversation. It was a disagreement with my regional manager at the time. And I came in the next day with my written letter of quit. I just quit. And I started a little small computer company. I was providing internet services, web design, e-commerce websites, that kind of stuff. And that launched my career after a turbulent, enjoyable, but then latter stages, turbulent time in the corporate world.
When you think back to those moments where you lasted 2 years and then 1 year and so on, was it a kind of restlessness, a sense of curiosity, or maybe you just didn't like living under somebody else's rules? Was there something in you that was kind of fighting to get out, do you think?
I think when I recall those times, I was always a hard worker. I always gave the best I could, but there was always politics, internal stuff going on, and I suppose I was career hungry those days. I wanted to move forward fast. I wanted to get things done. I wanted to climb that corporate ladder. And I suppose towards the latter stages of working for other people, I became dissatisfied with that. And I thought, I think that's when I decided that I wanted to take my life in my own hands, as it were. So I think it's unfulfillment, dissatisfaction with the companies that I was working with, and went out on my own.
So tell me about that bit then. So you got it on your own. Now, I mean, having been in that situation myself, I know that that's a double-edged sword. Suddenly you're on your own, you've got your blank canvas, but also the printer breaks down. You have to mend the printer. There's no one else there to do it. If something else goes wrong, it's down to you. You have to file your own accounts. In those early days, what were your sort of mixture of emotions at that point? How did you approach that?
Great question, Trevor. When I started my company, clearly we know if you can't get clients, you're not getting paid. You've got to find food. You've got to hunt for food. You've got to farm for food, as it were. And I remember when I started my company, I spent weeks getting my letterheads right, my compliment slips right, getting my website done, getting brochures done, weeks upon weeks. Must have been 2 or 3 months. And at some point, my wife said, "Oh, I thought you started this business." I said, "Yeah, I have." How's it going? And I said, "Yeah, we move, it's steady but slow." And I remember stuffing these envelopes with the brochures and what I could do. And I remember I had a directory list of different companies that I wanted to get them for me to provide services to them. And I posted them all out. And I waited, Trevor, and I waited. No one was calling me. My wife said, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And you better go out and do something. So I started networking. I went out to business network. I found a local business networks, local chamber of commerce, and others, BNI. And I suppose then that's when I started meeting people, talking about my business, which I wasn't doing prior to that, and started getting clients coming in slowly but surely.
Okay, so do you remember your first client win? Everybody remembers, I think, their first client win where you thought, yes, okay, I've got a paying customer. How did you achieve that? Was it good fortune, or was it something you really had to work for, that first client?
Yeah, I remember the very first client. It was someone wanted it was actually an ex-colleague who had told, I think their friend or associate that, yeah, I work with this guy. He started, he does websites now, and contact him. So that was quite fortuitous. And I remember that client, we met up, we discussed, and then I wasn't sure what to charge, but I said £500. And I was like, £500 to get your website down, five pages. And this was back in, I started the business around 1999, 2000. So I was excited. I was really excited to get this project. And obviously I had more time in my hands, so I could really provide a great service. And so that was my very first client. Yes.
Okay, and so you've sort of won that first client. I mean, the business that you're talking about now isn't the business that you're doing now, is it? It's a
No,
separate.
no.
So how many businesses have you sort of run, and sort of around that? Was it just been the two, or have there been others along the way as well?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a long journey because I've been an entrepreneur, as you know, for over 2 decades now. In fact, 23 years. And the same business I'm talking about, there came a point where after a couple of years, there was a gentleman who approached me and said, "Love what you're doing. Would love to do your sales and marketing for you. This is my experience." And I thought, oh, that's exciting, because I'm trying to do everything. Like you said at the top of the call, wearing the hats, customer service hat, sales marketing hat, all that. So I thought, okay, that would be good. And we worked out a remuneration. And so he's going to do sales and marketing. And then later on, his friend came, and I met him. And his friend, because I'll go into offices, and when in my client offices, and they'll say, "Hey, Mac, I know you're doing this website for us, but we've got a problem with this computer, and this is not talking to this." So I would help them out a little bit. And so when this sales and marketing director came on board, and he said, "Oh, I've got a friend who does computers and computer installation and computer networking." I said, "Oh, okay, great," because a lot of our clients are asking for that. So we became an one-stop shop for computer, internet, that kind of stuff. So this gentleman's come on now, and he becomes our operations manager. Cut a long story short, time goes on, we're doing quite well, things are moving forward. And then the sales and marketing guy says, I don't want to do this anymore. I've got another opportunity. I'm going to go and do that. And less than a month, the operations manager disappears. And I'm thinking, what's happened here? So I'm doing sales and marketing now, and I'm working more hours. This operations person, who's a key person for computer network, computer installations, disappears. I'll go to his house. I'm ringing the bell. No answer. I'm phoning him. No answer. He's ignoring me, clearly. I ask mutual friends, "Have you seen him?" "Yeah, he's around." What I didn't know, Trevor, is between the two of them, they're colluded, and creditors were now after the company, which is me, and they've disappeared. I find myself over 100 grand in debt now in terms of creditors that I have to pay. So I borrow money on loans, on credit cards, trying to fix the situation, and also to pay our 12 staff at the time, because now I'm working 17 hours, 18 hours, 19 hours a day sometimes. I'm getting near exhaustion. My wife is pregnant with our second child, and a few short years had gone by where I've hardly seen much of our first child, and I'm nearly burned out. And for me, it was the lowest point that I'm broke, I'm struggling. It looks like my wife's going to leave me. I'm trying to figure all this thing out. And there was one evening, and if you know London, Trevor, there was not one evening, and my office was in North London, Edmonton, and I live in West London near Heathrow. So that trek around what's called the A406, A40, that can be anything from an hour to 2 hours, depending on traffic. I was doing that morning, night. And because I didn't live in the area, and the two of them, by the way, lived in the area, and I'm going there, opening the office. So one evening, just 5 minutes from my home, I stopped at this car park, and I sat there with my hands on the wheels, and engine was off, and I just broke down. Broke down in the sense that I felt all I could sense in my head was that I'm such a failure. I'm such a failure. I'm not a bad guy, but how did I get here where my business is not working? I'm stressed out. I owe people money. It was just a mess. And then in that moment, I realized that how do successful people do business, Trevor? How do they become wealthy? How do they create great businesses? Because certainly there was something that I didn't know. And that evening, that evening, it was a bit of a blur. I got home, it was a bit of a blur. But the next day, I thought, wow, I've got to really get to grips with this. So I started reading books, reading books on success, on business, on wealth creation, and started attending seminars and trainings. And within 2 years, I was able to fix what I didn't know. And then I sold that little company. So that was a bit of a journey there. It was a bit of a headache. But in that journey, I realized what works in business, what doesn't work in business. And and I've gone on to create other businesses after that.
Okay, well, thank you for being so candid about that. I think that's something that we can all relate to. I mean, if I relate a bit of my experience, I've had feelings. So I've been running my own business for 12 years, and I've had moments where I have felt burnt out and a bit of a failure at various points. And then I've kind of learned, I can't remember who said it, was that, I fail every day and that's why I succeed. And I think it was a basketball player, but I can't remember who. And is that thing. Can I ask you about when you're at that moment where you're sitting in the car and you're thinking, this isn't working and there's something missing, there's a missing piece of the jigsaw here for me. A lot of people may get to a point where they feel like that and they know that there's something they need to do. And you kind of took that step and you learned all the significant stuff, that you needed to learn in order to build again. But there must have been this trade-off in your mind that I've got to learn this stuff to get off this particular hamster wheel, which is taking me nowhere. But I still have to deal with these problems. I'm still in debt and, my wife's still going on at me and I can't find these guys and things like that. How do you trade off that time? Because there's a difference between what you need to do to get out of where you are at the moment versus the immediate problems, which probably overwhelm so many of us.
Great point there, Trevor. You see, one thing I learned very well is that there's a difference between academic success and entrepreneurial success, two different things. And in my head, yes, I have an MBA, but master's degree in business administration. And if that was the case, why was I failing? And so when I started actually reading books from people like Richard Branson and understanding the mindset of the entrepreneur, when I started understanding that things will not always go your own way, when I started learning that you could put a plan together, but it may not succeed, when I started learning that if it's got to succeed, it's got to be down to me. So once I was getting the mindset right and the attitude to business and entrepreneurship right, and the other side is really the mechanics of how business works. So business is pretty straightforward, right? So we know we've got to find people or people who have a problem or organizations who have a problem. We provide a solution of value to help them to overcome their problem. And we do that consistently and we add value to them. And so business is pretty straightforward. So when I realized that, look, we just need to, there were some specific things I needed to do from a mechanical and dynamic side to make sure that we are consistent in our results. And essentially, in working with people, one of the key things I learned was something called a code of honor, which is about the behavior of individuals on the team. And so up till then, so here's a question I often ask people. When there are no rules, what happens? Well, we have chaos, right? We have chaos, anarchy. And the key thing is that people start playing by their own rules. And this is what had happened with me and my business partners. And that was what was going on amongst my staff. So I was able to start fixing the context of how I wanted my business to operate, how I wanted people to behave, get people to agree that this is how we're going to do it. Just like a football team would say, look, we turn up at training this time, we do this together. So that was a key thing for me outside of the sales and the marketing and the operations and all the other things we had to do.
That's a brilliant sort of explanation and answer. So you moved on and you started to fix some of those problems and challenges. And what sort of happened next? I mean, I've noticed you and your business sort of mind space coaching, through the fact that you seem to have a system there. You've got an approach and a method and so on. But you tell me, take me through kind of what you then learned in order to get to the mind space coaching.
Absolutely. So, yeah, great question. So when I sold the business, in the midst of selling the business, I was also learning, or in the midst of fixing the business and then selling it, I was also learning about property, real estate property. So my wife and I started to invest in real estate property. In those days, it was using a mechanism called no money down, because I was in debt, I was struggling. And so we acquired quite a lot of properties with no money, rented them out, cash flow started coming in. So we built a business around, we got three real estate businesses around that. But when those properties were rewarding us cash flow wise, where it was covering all our expenses, where we didn't really have to worry about money anymore. We had this kind of financial independence, financial freedom through property. I realized that people were asking, and I'd fixed my business, and I sold it. People started asking me, Matt, can you help me with my business? So I started helping people one-on-one, just showing them what I could see it, because I've been through it. I could see what wasn't working, and I'll help them for free. I didn't know there was anything called coaching. Yeah. And then later on, I realized that actually I could charge for this service. So I started running monthly, back in those days, it was in Marble Arch. I hired a room. I'll have 5, 10, 20 people show up, and I'll do some trainings. And so I was doing that monthly. Then I'll get hired to speak around in London, and then eventually around the UK. And then a major promoter saw me speaking, and then they started flying me around the world. So I started speaking on stages, the same stages as Anthony Robbins or Robert Kiyosaki, if you know Rich Dad Poor Dad, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, all these people. So the reason why that happened, the reason why I started the mind space coaching, is because people were asking me for help around their business. And then Trevor, in those days, I remember writing down what I felt my mission was, my life mission was after my failure. And my mission became clear. And for the rest of my life, I felt it's to inspire, educate, and empower people to live a life of joy, courage, passion, and purpose. And that's the essence of what we do at Mindspace Coaching. When we're working with entrepreneurs and small businesses, is we are there to educate them, empower them so they can build a better business, so they can enjoy their life, enjoy their family, enjoy their pastimes as well. Because business is more than just you working in it. It's got to reward you in one way or another. 2
questions out of that. One is, I'm interested in this moment of enlightenment where you were helping people for free and then think, hang on, I can actually make some money out of this. I mean, did it come as a surprise to you? Because sometimes it comes to, you hear about people with passion-driven businesses, and and they say that if you follow your passion, you don't work another day in your life, in your mind, sort of at least. I mean, that light bulb moment, had you always associated success with hard graft rather than passion up to that point? And the second thing is, did you know you were a good speaker at that point? Or did you sort of just find out by just suddenly somebody said, could you come and speak? And you went, oh, right, okay. I mean, I'm just interested in those 2 little moments of realization.
Yeah, so the first one is about passion and purpose. The other one is about speaking. So let me answer the first one. My parents were hardworking. And typically, if you studied in psychology, you typically follow the same path or totally opposite. And I worked hard when I worked for those companies. I worked hard in my own business. And obviously it wasn't bringing the reward I wanted. When I started reading books and I read things about, and I went to courses around, and I heard things about passion and purpose and all the rest of it. And I remember doing an exercise where the exercise was, if, at the end of your life, when you look back, what is it you would have regrets about? What is it you would have loved to do but didn't do? And I was getting clues from my failures and clues from my successes as to, actually, I love helping people. full stop. I just love helping people to succeed and I was doing that, in my family, for example, when my nieces and nephews, my cousins needed help, my brothers and sisters say, speak to Uncle Max, people always came to me, even senior family members. So I was always helping people one way or another. And so when I discovered that actually my passion is helping people, so what group of people? Then I decided it's small business owners, because I can resonate with what they've been through. I can resonate with and empathize with what they are going through. But one thing I also learned is this. At the beginning, I was doing it all on my own. It wasn't a business. It was just a passion thing. And then I realized that I got to turn it into a business. And that's when I realized that is my purpose. That's when I started putting a team together to do the things within the company that allows me to serve more people and hiring coaches to serve our clients. And Trevor, good question you asked, because there is a big difference between passion and purpose. And passion will, at some point, will die out. The only thing that will keep you going is the purpose. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And so the purpose is the why you are doing this. And, regardless of how tough the business gets or the economy gets, my staff know the reason we are doing this is to serve these small businesses. We're not doing it just to make money. We are there, to make money, but to serve them the best we can so they can improve their business, make more money, have a better life.
Okay, that's a brilliant answer. So the business has been growing, and I took your test recently, the one that's on your website, the one that asks about sort of marketing, sales, teams and systems and so on. And it said that I was slightly wanting on the system side of things. Right. But is there a typical fault or weakness in businesses that are seeking to grow? You're talking about growing businesses, by up to 200% in less than 6 to 12 months, as I sort of understand it. But is there one thing more than others that hold businesses back?
So the quiz that you took, we call it the business growth quiz, and it assesses where you are, and it's a very short quiz, less than 3 minutes, as you know. It assesses where maybe your the area that's holding you back the most. And once you know that, you can go ahead and go ahead and fix it, or ask for help, or we can help you. So for every business, we work mostly with small business. Our clients happen to be a lot of coaches, consultants, therapists, experts, those type of people. And when we take them through our system and they follow our system, and a part of our system is measuring as well. We ask them to create this dashboard. We ask them to put their numbers in every single day. But just by doing that and following our system, they start seeing increases in their sales. When they don't have a system that we do, what happens is their results are inconsistent. But when you have to track every single number, now you are going to focus on those things rather than getting distracted in another meeting for no reason at all, another networking thing you probably don't need to go to, spending too much time on social media that may not be working for you. But do the activities that actually create the results, and then people start seeing within months 20%, 30%, 40% increases month by month, year on year, based on them doing the right thing. So I don't know if I've answered your question, really.
You have. It raises another question, though, inevitably, in my mind, that when you have systems, and I have my systems, in what I'm doing, whenever I am kind of doing my sort of regular metrics and updating and thinking, well, I've fallen a bit short there, or I did well there, and then reviewing the reasons why, there's always a tinge of guilt in me that I am doing this, but feeling that I'm not doing, and I know this is a faulty reasoning, quotes, proper work, like I'm not doing the work for the clients, or I'm not actually having the new business meeting. And I always worry, and I still have this thing, and I've largely got rid of it. It still lingers, that I'm sort of contemplating my navel a little bit, by looking at these numbers and pondering a little bit too much. I mean, do you understand that, that people have that thing? And maybe is that a common fault amongst businesses, or is it just me?
Well, what you're doing is the right thing. It's not a fault, because if you're looking at your metrics and your KPIs and your numbers, that means you are growth focused. Many small business owners are not growth focused. They just as long as we can pay the bills and as long as I can pay myself a salary, that is it. That's where their focus is. And so there is a saying that you can't improve what you don't measure. So if you are measuring it with the intention of improving it for growth, then that's a good thing. So you're not really staring at your navel for no reason. You are looking at it thinking, okay, where can we improve in this? So for example, our clients and their dashboard that they have to complete each day, we can look at it in 4 weeks' time and say, okay, so what's working? Like you had these number of leads coming in, you had these number of conversations with people, these are number of appointments, these are the number of follow-up calls you had. So what happened there? And if we start seeing a trend, let's continue with that. But if we having all these leads and we're having these conversations with these prospects and our conversion ratio, our sales closing ratio is very low, it may mean that you need some training there. So we say to our clients, okay, so let's look at your sales process. Let's now train you on how to convert much better, because that's a key area that's not working for you. Or maybe let's look at leads. You're not getting enough leads coming in. How are we creating awareness in the marketplace to get these leads? So now we work with them on just that area. So every single area is measured for a reason, so that we can improve in that area. And just simple tweaks, clients start seeing these increases in money that's hitting their bank account, because now you're improving on those areas.
Okay, that's brilliant. Now it's time. You've been very frank already in terms of your journey and so on. I've got to ask you another one though. I mean, in terms of your own business, I mean, what's your biggest fault? Either sort of, in terms of the things that you still struggle to get right in business, and do you have triggers that you recognize where you feel yourself slipping into that fault, where you think you recognize it in yourself now, through a sort of stronger mindset, and you kind of correct yourself? I mean, we've all got them. I mean, you've got this great system, that we've just been sort of discussing, but do you have little trigger points where you think, oh, there I go again, and you have to correct yourself?
My thing sometimes that I slip on and I keep catching myself on is at times not. So back in the old days, the reason why I created the system we have across our businesses is it's important from a structure point of view to have the right systems and processes and have the right team, the talent to deliver it. And so sometimes as we grow, I fall into not delegating things that I shouldn't be doing. So I'll catch myself, why am I doing this again? And then I remember, actually, I've got people who can do that. So it's constantly just delegating it out to the various departments who should be doing it and not me. And so I find myself getting pulled into things, and I've just got to stop, say no, hey, this person do it, or this person do it. Or for example, in our conversation, this is the first time we've had to speak, because previously you'll be speaking to me directly to book the call. But I think my one of my team, Owen, my business development manager, has been speaking to you and looking at things. And is this a good chat? Should we be speaking to Trevor? I was doing all those things before. It wasn't good use of my time. And that's an example. So for me, it's constantly delegating. And the other challenge I have is finding good talent who can deliver in a particular specific area. And so that's what I'm constantly doing, finding talent and making sure they can follow the systems that we've developed so that the company can continue growing. And that's not only in my training and education company, Mindspace Coaching, but also in my real estate property companies as well.
And so in a way, in order to correct that fault, you're kind of almost making do I need to be doing this almost becomes, you front load the task that's in front of you. And so that almost becomes your first question. And otherwise you get sucked into it. And, and before you know where you are, you're doing stuff or filling your day with stuff that you don't actually need to be doing. So
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so the question I often ask myself is, who can be doing this apart from me? And if someone else can be doing it, let them do it, so I can focus on the high level stuff in terms of the vision, the direction, the strategic direction of the company, and finding good talent.
Now, we want to give our listeners the confidence they need to succeed. Now, you've come through adversity and now you're succeeding, and I'm sure there's more success to come. But is there something you would say to our listeners about, your collective positive or negative experiences, that you would pass on as a sort of single piece of advice, I know this is a tough question, a single piece of advice about what our listeners who are maybe just starting out or they've been doing it for a couple of years and not sure how to scale up, what sort of bit of advice would you give them?
Years ago, when I was struggling, one of my mentors said this, and I thought, wow, great point. And what he said is, your business, your wealth, your wealth and your success can only grow to the extent that you grow. So I've always pondered on that for years. Your business, your wealth, your success can only grow to the extent that you grow. And what he meant by that is this: if you have a growth mindset, if you are willing to learn and to figure things out, then yeah. So if you grow yourself to a level, if you are a level 5 person and you have a level 8 problem, is that a big problem? Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness. But if you grow yourself to a level 9 person and you have a level 8 problem, it's like, well, is that a problem? Well, probably you won't even see the problems. It's like, Trevor, you and I go on our daily days. There are things that like, oh my goodness, I've got to get this done. How do I figure it out? And other things were, you just do this and do this and get someone to do it. It's done. It's not an issue. So whoever's listening in or watching, whatever your struggles are, you got to figure out, okay, how do I overcome that? Do I need to read a book on this subject? Do I need to get a coach or an advisor on this or a mentor on this? Do I need to go to some kind of training so I can understand this and grow myself bigger than this problem? Whether it's hiring people, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's cash flow management, whether it's financing, whether it's accounting, you can learn it, grow yourself above it. And now you know it, you can deal with it easier or get someone to work on it.
Right. Okay. Now, what are you up to now? Is there anything you're working on that you want to mention or that you're particularly excited about? We're always interested in, with entrepreneurial minds, they're often really excited about the new thing that they're about to do. What's yours at the moment?
No, I mean, for me, it's been the same. We're on a mission to support small business owners, and we just continue to do that. In the next 10 years, we want to make sure that we've impacted over 1 million small business owners in terms of what they're doing. So that's all we're doing. That's why, the quiz that you've seen, we put a quiz out there. It's for free. It's on my website, macattram.com. Anyone can take the quiz. As you know, I'm always putting out content, lots of free content on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, just doing what we are doing. So in terms of, there are major things going on in my real estate property where we are building more and more properties and building apartments. But in the training and coaching business, for me, it's very much, how do we impact the lives of over 1 million small business owners?
And then that's a fantastic note to end on, I think, because if the purpose is clear, why change what you're doing? Because you're getting such a lot of enjoyment and buzz, and your team is as well out of that. Mac, I'd just like to say thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
You're most welcome, Trevor. Thank you for having me.
Okay, that bit about the difference between passion and purpose that Mac mentioned. How many of us use the terms interchangeably without much thought? I was also profoundly moved by that moment when Mac was sitting in his car when everything was going wrong, trying to work out how to put it right. Bit by bit, he was able to think it through and come back. And if Mac could come back from that dark moment, it gives hope for us all. So thank you, Mac, for your time. And thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate and review through your usual podcast provider. And if you want to find out more about the Merri-Cast or our business Merrible Media, you can find us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to join us for our next episode. But until then, thanks for listening.